Welcome back to another episode of WIT Talk presented by Women in Tech Huntsville and their sponsors. My name is Madison Travis and I'm a member of the Women in Tech operations team and digital communication strategist for Intuitive. I'm joined in the Spark studio today by Liv Weaver, Cayla Phillips, and Morgan Hodgson. You may recognize these names from last year's early career panel. We're here to discuss topics like being a young woman in the workplace, how our current roles may not have been what was expected, and give realistic advice to those wanting to find community in the workplace and beyond. Welcome back to the WIT Talk podcast. We are here with our Career Nav early career panel. I am Madison Travis hosting today, and I'm here with
Liv Weaver from Intuitive Research and Technology.
Cayla Phillips.
Morgan Hodgson from SCIC.
And we are going to be talking all things how we got where we are, what's new, how we learned throughout our career so far. Really all the topics. Really take our career panel and put it into more fun discussion is really what we're doing. So if you tuned in last year, I guess that was last August, we're back again. So if y'all go around, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
Okay, I'm going to go first because I'm next to you. So my name's Liv. I am from the north, so not originally an Alabamian. I started out, I went to the Art Institute of Chicago for school, and I studied animation, and somehow found my way into computer science and game design. So I'm a bit of a poser when it comes to tech, but now I'm working as a technical artist. So I use code to make immersive visualizations and experiences, and it all has kind of come full circle.
Every time you explain that, I always think it's the coolest thing.
Me too, and I work with her.
I know, it's crazy. Well, I'm Cayla, like I mentioned. I am also not originally from Alabama. I was from Virginia. I ended up going to Virginia Tech after bouncing around from a couple different colleges, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I initially was going to do absolutely nothing that had to do with math. That's what I told everyone. And then decided to do a 180 and push myself really hard and get a mechanical engineering degree. With that, it's kind of primed me, I feel like, to do pretty much anything, which is really cool. So right now I'm actually working in management consulting and just kind of trying to help them make big transitions. So any kind of change in transition, change management type things is what I've been working on recently, which is obviously a little bit different than the math and engineering. But the problem solving and logical reasoning that you get with engineering is applicable to so many different things. It's really the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So you do electrical engineering, you do fluid mechanics, thermodynamics, you're sitting there and building out the energy transfer of a power plant. But then you're also sitting there and figuring out how to build something off to the side. So you can kind of go whichever direction you want, which is part of the reason why I took it, because I wanted to be flexible.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay, well, I am not from Alabama either.
Hey.
Common theme here. I am from outside of Orlando, Florida, Winter Park. I did go to the University of Alabama for college, which is how I eventually wound up here. I am a capture manager now for SCIC, and considering I did not know that was even a job until 4 years ago when I started doing that, I definitely never thought that I would be doing capture or working for the Army or living in Alabama or any of my life. I was working in luxury retail management. I went from selling $800 shoes to now working with missile launchers and counter UAS equipment.
So all those skills carried over.
Yeah, selling heels is very similar to selling missile software.
Definitely.
It's the same.
Well, as you can see, I'm here with some really cool, really cool women today. And I guess maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Madison Travis, and I work as a digital strategist for Intuitive Research and Technology Corporation here in Huntsville. And contrary to the rest of the people I'm in the room with, I am from Alabama, did not want to stay here, and definitely did not want to work in the defense industry. And all that just flipped itself on its head, and I'm here, and I love it, and I love my job, love the company I work for, and it's been a lot of fun. And that has resulted in me getting involved with Women in Tech, which is where we kind of all met and now have this community of early career, just figuring out what the heck we're going to do with the rest of our lives. So speaking of that, I feel like we all kind of took a turn in our roles, weren't really expecting that. Is your current role what you were expecting it was going to be? Like, do you think that that's what you anticipated it being like whenever you either applied or maybe even whenever you got promoted to your current role now?
I definitely not. I don't think like a role or job is ever going to be what you expect. I work in R&D, so, I talked about I have a background in art, and let's say, like, maybe more like a foreground in computer science. So every day is really different, and honestly kind of weird. A technical artist, that role, like, it has many meanings to some people, and a lot of people it means absolutely nothing. So that title kind of stems from the entertainment industry and game development. So in our environment of I guess serious games and modeling and sim, it's weird. So my elevator pitch of like making visualizations with code, most people go, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Like, no. Okay. What is that?
Yeah. So it's not what I expected, but it is still fun. It's as fun as the first day still for me. So.
I feel like, though, like, because you didn't necessarily understand your role, it allows you to better relate to people in our community and things whenever they don't understand, and whenever you're trying to explain to them, like, this is how this solution could work for you. You're like, I was there too, like, it's okay that you don't understand what I do. Like, this is, like, I don't know, you have better ways to explain it, I guess.
Yeah, I've kind of become the bridge between very technical people that have great complex ideas but no way to explain them,
Yeah.
and, like, really creative people that have all these wonderful ideas and visualizations but don't know where to put them.
Yeah. Well, okay, speaking of, like, being a bridge, like, Cayla, I feel like you're kind of that in a lot of different scenarios, too, in what you do, like, acting like a bridge between what the solution is, or maybe thinking through what a potential solution could be for a customer who just knows they want that end goal or things like that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, most of it is effectively communicating ideas, making sure that people aren't kind of stuck in their silos, because you can be doing something amazing and the person next to you needs it and just has no idea that you're doing it. Yeah. And so if you can connect those people, like you were saying,
Yeah.
I mean, it helps so much.
A lot of people don't know that solution is an option because they haven't
Yeah.
heard of it yet.
Yes.
And you're like holding on to it like, I know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you're sitting there like, I've been sitting on this idea.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the right time to pounce.
Definitely. So, okay, would you say, like, now that you are like that bridge and you're able to think through those and get people out of their boxes that often they're stuck in, like, would you say that's what you expected your role was going to be like whenever you decided to enter the world of management consulting?
A little bit.
Yeah.
One thing that I always said, kind of like when I was looking for jobs, is I always said like communication was my forte. And so being that bridge was kind of what I found out I was good at when I was in school. Because there were those people that, like you said, they have so many amazing ideas, but they can't figure out exactly how to sell it right.
Yeah.
And they can't figure out how to make it work with the right people.
Yeah.
And so being able to connect them and being able to kind of make sure everyone is communicating effectively, their ideas, get out there in a way that makes it impactful, is extremely important. And not entirely exactly what I thought I was going to be doing. I thought I'd be more on the technical side of that. But I mean, I enjoy it. I just like working with people and solving problems.
Yeah, and you still have to understand the technical side. Like, you need to know where they're coming from in order to be able to make it make sense for anybody else.
Like, we have to be able to talk to the right audience about it and the people who are wanting something like that. And you have to do it, like you said, like the impactful way. Like, you have to, like, that's impactful work. And because there is so much impactful work happening, but if you don't communicate it well, then it all kind of falls flat,
Yeah, completely.
I feel like that also translates. I feel like we're all kind of like bridging the gap here. Like, Morgan, I feel like that's like literally what you do too. Like, I mean, you have to be able to communicate that properly too.
Exactly. And I think it's a little bit different than how you guys have described it, because for me, it's almost like I work in like a strategic, but also department, but like competition, like we're competing with other companies for work at the end of the day. And we have to build technical solutions, build pricing strategies, competitive intel strategies, internal functional staff, contracts, subcontracts, teaming, all these different functional areas have to come together and work and synergize, but they have to be molded to unique customer requirements that are a part of the request for proposals. Yeah. And so, we have all these amazing talents across the company that, like you kind of said, the people working on programs next to each other, the engineers next to each other don't even know that the other exists or what they're doing half the time. And so being able to bring all those ideas and all of those expertise areas together, create a comprehensive solution for the company that also makes sense for the customer and what they are specifically requiring, and also having to take into account what other companies are going to be doing and how to differentiate yourself and what makes us unique. It's a giant puzzle. Yeah. And to kind of tying to the original question, did I expect that I would be doing this? All that went into it? Absolutely not. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know that capture in itself was a career, but all of the sub-elements that make up a capture team, engineering, contracts, subcontracts, teaming, competitive intel, finance, solutions architecting, basis of estimating, cost strategy, all that stuff. I mean, I didn't know anything about any of that. Right, yeah. And then now you have to manage all of it together. So I did not at all expect it, but I think that for me, and I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's still relative. For me, I think the fact that I didn't expect any of it and I didn't understand a lot of it, it ended up being, it was overwhelming at first, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I was so moldable. Like I didn't come in with any prejudgment or understanding of how it should work or how it all should function and come together. I was just like this blank slate. Like I just was absorbing information, and through that I was able to objectively learn how things and processes should come together and how they should work with no like predisposition. So absolutely. I think that ended up in the long term, not having the expectation and not knowing what the job was going to be ended up being perfect for my situation.
Well, and I feel like it's incredibly rewarding though. Like, I mean, especially if you're happy with the company you work for and you're proud to represent that. It's rewarding to bring all of those expertises together and be like, no, like we have this, like,
it absolutely is. And I see that every day. Like I have so much, pride working for SCIC because I am so lucky to sit where I am and get to go down into all these different programs and sit with the engineers and learn what they do. And I get to have this wide landscape of all the different technical expertise that our company has, both working on programs for our government customers and internally R&D, IRAD, and get to paint this amazing picture of how it all comes together. And I wish more people got to see that and experience that with their companies. So I feel really grateful that I'm able to be in that spot.
Absolutely. It is really rewarding to get to be a part of that. And I feel like we're all kind of saying like bridging that gap, because I feel like a lot of times that is such a necessary component in all of this. And women in tech in general, like, you just have to be either surrounded or involved in, or, maybe even doing the tech in some regard to be involved in this community. And I think that's been a really cool part to get to see all the pieces that play into this huge, industry that we have, which has been really cool and not something I expected. We all kind of just said, I don't really know if it was all expected what we're doing now, but if you could go back and tell, your school age self something, what is something you wish that you knew while you were in school preparing for where you're at now?
So when I was in school, I was trying really hard to just blend, just like be the computer scientist, be that smart person. Because in my major, I think there were like 5 or 6 other women that were, coming up with me at the same time. So I would look around and be like, okay, no one's going to take me seriously. Like, I dressed really funky. I had on like huge sneakers and like I looked like a sad Wreck-It Ralph. It was upsetting. Like I was like wearing overalls.
That is an amazing description.
I know, I love that.
I don't know what that was. I can find one, I'm sure. But I think, like now that I'm actually doing a technical job and I have some accomplishments under my belt and I feel a lot more confident in who I am. I wish I could go back and tell myself, like, there's a really big gap between, like, being honest and being candid. Like, honesty has so many, you know, like, moral connotations and, like, all of those things, but I wish that I was more candid when I was young and just straight to the point, more forthcoming about the person that I wanted to be, even if it was uncomfortable. And now I'm in a space where I feel a lot more confident to be able to do that. And
I feel like being, like, really, like, taking a step back and being confident in just who you want to be, is not even necessarily who you are now, but, like, who you want to be, being confident with that idea of yourself applies to so many areas in life. Like, of course it applies to professional, but, you know, that goes beyond that too, and personal. But I feel like you just represent yourself better in whatever situation you're in.
yeah, and, you know, it can be clothing, it can be the way that you speak up for yourself. That growth, I don't know if it's something that you can go back and give that to people.
Right.
I think it just comes from time.
Unfortunately, yes.
And I think it's like on that topic, confidence is so important in the workplace, no matter who you are, but especially as a woman in any workplace. Your confidence is like 70% of the game is like how much you believe in yourself. But it's so important. I mean, looking back on me, just to have leniency with yourself. That confidence is built over time.
Yes.
And that's just the matter of it. I mean, you're going to be more confident after you've been in a role for 5 years and you can answer questions eloquently right off the bat versus when you're like, I don't know how to, like, I don't remember my password to log onto the computer. I've been here for a week. So, like, being honest with yourself is so important, but also giving yourself that leniency and grace to, like, grow where you are in your life. Like, no one's going to expect you to be, like, the top of your game when you're a sophomore in college and you don't know.
Yeah. Also, like, you're still, no matter where you're at in your career, you're always going to have rooms that you're uncomfortable walking into.
Absolutely.
Like, it does not matter. Like, I mean, CEO, president, you're still going to have a room that you walk into that you're uncomfortable. And I feel like that's even important to just, like, remember is, like, whenever you have that moment of, like, self-doubt or anything, it's like, future me is going to have that too. It's just going to be in a different situation.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
I think that kind of streamlines what, like, into how I thought I would answer that question is, like, if I had to go back, I felt so I didn't have a lot of self-confidence in, like, what my career would be. And I was the kind of person that was like, just, like, cross my fingers, it's going to work out. Like, but I was seeing people around me, like my friends were doing internships or, like, co-ops, jobs with these companies, or, like, had really specific majors and degrees like nursing or accounting where they, like, kind of funnel into careers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, just I was doing business, so open-ended.
Right.
I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I was just watching everybody around me taking it super seriously, and I was like, wow, I hope I get a job one day.
Yeah.
And I felt so insecure about it, and so I look back and I'm like, you don't have to have this, like, well thought out master plan, Taylor Swift mastermind to have a career that is fulfilling and full of growth and upward momentum and stability. Like, it's gonna happen for you. So don't be hard on yourself. Like, let yourself be open-minded, be open to opportunity. Comparison is the thief of joy. So don't sit and, like, look around you. Just focus on what feels right, and don't be afraid to take opportunities that make you a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe you didn't immediately see yourself in because it's not this, like, picture perfect glamorous thing, because you never know what that opportunity might springboard you into, or what you might learn, or how you might grow and start to snowball your career. So that's kind of what I thought when I was thinking about that question.
Well, the comparison note too, like, I feel like it's so important, especially as women. Like, that is a rut that you can really find yourself in, especially being younger. Like, it's really hard not to compare your situation to someone else's. But I think as you grow in your career, grow personally, professionally, whatever that, you know, looks like for you, you realize how important and beneficial it is to seek community as opposed to that comparison. And I don't know, say someone is, like, really killing it in a role that you're like, man, I wish I had that. Like, looking to them for guidance or getting advice, or just, like, hanging out with them, befriending them, and just seeing the community in that as opposed to that comparison.
Yeah. In school, I feel like it was such a different environment than now as an adult. Because in school, like, people would really take shots at you when you were younger. Like, it was so hard not to compare yourself. Like, I was like, I want to be a game developer. And I'm going to all these classes with guys. And they're like, you don't play Call of Duty?
Yeah. And you're like, what?
Call of Duty isn't for me, okay?
Right.
Like, I'm playing Stardew Valley over here. My opinion's still valid.
Who did you marry?
Like, You know, that comparison of like, you're not valid because the space isn't for you and you don't understand it. When like,
but I feel like that's what's important, is realizing what's for you. And I feel like that's a whole other like thing, is like not even just the comparison, but realizing what is for you. And I think that goes back to that whole being confident and like, maybe I don't want that, or like being lenient with yourself and saying like, I don't want to work 12 hours a day. Like I know that other person is really gunning for that one thing. That's not where I'm at right now. Or, you know, just realizing what is for you, I feel like totally changes your trajectory, you know?
Yeah, and it's a positive that your feminine experience is different. That you played,
absolutely.
you know, Ooblets instead of Pokemon. Like, that's a great thing because you have different thoughts. You have different things to bring.
Yeah.
And like building off of that, the one thing that I realized, because I think I was like the opposite of you in school. Like I was like doing engineering.
Like this is what you
have
wanted.
this plan. We're doing this stuff. And
So
then
you were
I
Taylor
feel
Swift.
like
You were a mastermind.
I am on my Eras tour right now.
Yes.
I genuinely feel like I hit the opposite problem. Like I feel like you came out with like all of these like, let's see what happens, let's go with it. Whereas I was like, I want to do this stuff. And then I feel like you also have a problem, because if you come out and you take a job that's not exactly what you think,
Right.
then you're like, now
Everything
what?
crumbles.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
you have like personal moment for a second.
Yes.
You're having your like moment where you're
Yeah.
like, what am I doing?
Right.
Like what am I supposed to be doing? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Was I right before? Did I plan this out wrong? Like what's
Well, then
going
you
on
tussle
here?
with like, was all of my work for nothing? Like if I'm not going to
Exactly.
get to that end goal, like what was all of that for? You know?
And then like, should I have taken different? Then you kind of go down that
Yes.
rabbit hole. And like for me, I think the biggest thing is like I would tell myself when you mentioned that, like just relax.
Yeah.
Like relax. Like everything works out.
Yes.
Everything is fine. Because I'm like the 20-year plan type person,
Oh, no.
which is like crazy. And
Liv,
but
oh,
like
no.
it's like, oh yeah. And so it's like for me, I've like changed kind of how I do it though. I have like okay, we'll get nerdy for a second. Did you guys watch Doctor Who?
Yes.
You know how there's fixed points in time?
Yes.
So in my mind, I envision it more as like there's fixed points in time that I want to hit, like life goals.
Yeah.
But it's not so much like my path to get there that I've mapped out as much. It's more of like, okay, I kind of see the lighthouse. This is the direction that I think I want to move. And let's relax and like see where the current takes me.
Light a candle and take a seat for a moment.
Yeah, like let's.
No, I think that's important though, as opposed to like really honing in on like every step it takes to reach some certain thing. Just knowing like in the next 5 years, I would like to be managing a team of this many people, or just like in the next 5 years, I would love to learn this technical skill. Or right now where we are, just like it's important to just like be confident that we will reach those goals, as opposed to like, okay, I need to check this box, and like, you know, it's just such a different perspective on things like that. You know?
Yeah, completely. And just like being open to everything.
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, like coming out and being like, all right, let's see what I get. Let's see how it works out. Like I'm moldable. I'm young.
Yeah.
I have so much going on. I have so much going for me. And then just like seeing where you go.
I think that I'm going to rabbit hole it real quick. I think that you also touched on something that leads into a similar topic, saying like you had this plan and now you're in this, you're in this place and it may not be what you've completely expected and your world's crumbling. I think that like everybody in this room right now, I think is clearly high achieving women,
Right.
and which is amazing. But I think that's something that you start to experience when you're a high achieving woman, man, whatever in your role as you're growing in your career. It can be kind of difficult to toe the line of being super passionate and invested in your work and not having your self-worth tied to just your job.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
That
I
is
feel like that
such
even
a
goes back-
hard line.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I mean I'm thinking even like, and I'm sure y'all can relate because we're all kind of like experiencing the same things. Like in school, it was tied to grades. It was tied to like, you know, being involved in XYZ or like all those things. Like that was identity. And I was actually talking to my intern the other day and we were chatting because she's graduating soon. And I was telling her.
Hi, Natalie.
Yes. Hey, Natalie. I was telling her like that was a really hard transition going from college to corporate. Was what in the world am I validated by anymore? Like what my one annual review? Like, no, like I can't, like there's no longer that you're receiving a grade weekly or you know where you stand at all times. It's a lot just riding on your back, and that's why it's hard to not tie your self-worth to that because a lot of it is unknown all the time. Like, you really just have to work hard and hope that the work you're putting in is leading towards something, you know, and that's really hard, really, really hard.
Yeah, there's like a cruel irony in life where, like, when you're successful, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for me, it almost just creates more pressure to then be successful again as fast as possible.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you also, like, at least for me, very similarly, I set these, like, expectations and standards for myself that it's like, I must achieve, I must be perfect, I must hit these marks every time, and that's just not human.
And then you're like sitting on your couch, like, why do I feel so burnt out?
Yeah, then you like sit there and you're trying to go to bed and you're like, oh, man, why am I
having an existential crisis?
Yes. Like, it's just Tuesday. I didn't know what was going on.
I was just trying to eat dinner, you know? No, absolutely. But I feel like that even goes back to your point about the whole leniency thing. It's like giving yourself grace where you need it, like, is so essential if you want to continue those successful things. Like, you have to include both. There's not one or the other. You can't just be successful and expect yourself to be that all the time, or you're going to be burnt out and never going to want to do anything in your career ever again.
Yeah, like, not every day is going to be a perfect day. Not every day is even going to be a good day.
Yeah.
And that has to be okay.
Speaking of, you know, we're kind of hitting on some of these things that we're experiencing now as women in the workplace, especially high achieving women in the workplace. What are some of the challenges that y'all have faced in your current role, and like how do you think those have kind of shaped you into where you're at now?
I feel like as a woman, there's a lot of expectations that we either set up or other people set up for us, and then we just fully adopt them. And there's a lot of perceptions, and they're like such oxymorons for us. Like, we were talking about being achievers. Like, you have to be a high achiever, but like you can't be in everyone's face about it. Like, you have to be humble. You can't brag. And, you know, you have to be really intelligent and smart and striving, but like, it can't be hard. Like, you can't be like, wow, my day was really tough. Like, you have to be graceful and gentle. And you have to lead teams, but you can't be harsh. You start your job, you're fresh out of college, and there's already so much built up for you before you even walk in the door that I feel like it's really, it can be really tough and kind of crushing and frustrating to be like, I just want to do my job. I just want to be taken seriously.
I feel very fortunate, and I've said this many times, even at our Women in Tech events. I work on a team with all women. We have to work, obviously, with a bunch of other teams that are not all women all the time, but our team is like my little safe space at work. Like, I know that that's a room that I'm fully taken seriously in. Like, there is no, you know, like, we're all in this together. It's a full sense of community. And that's one of those things I've always like kept in the back of my mind, is how thankful I am that I had that as my first, you know, true career, is that I had that kind of standard set for me. Like, I know, like, I'm supposed to be taken seriously no matter what room I walk into, and they really showed me that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm not capable.
So for me, I'm lucky that in my role now, I don't think I've struggled as much as being a woman. I think that my age has played more into a factor of my challenges at work than being a woman. And it's an interesting dynamic because I think some of it is real, but then also some of it is self-imposed in my head. I've been really lucky that at SCIC, I've always been given immense respect for the work that I do, and I am taken seriously. But there have been instances where I feel like I have had to work harder or be more aggressive or louder or more demanding to overcome this hump of I'm not just a kid. Like, I'm not, you know, the assistant. I am the one running this project. And so sometimes I will step back from those instances and, you know, sometimes like I'll be in meetings sometimes and I feel like, you know, it's so much easier for my counterparts at other companies or wherever to look at, you know, the other men in the room when I'm really the one talking and running the show. And then, you know, sometimes I'll just step back out of those experiences and go like, is it in my head or is it really happening? Because like, it's just interesting because at my company, like I said, I don't really have that struggle as much. But then when I go like out into the world, that's when I experience it. And I just don't know, like, am I self-inflicting my own problem.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a mix of, I mean, starting out makes it more difficult. Starting out now, I mean, there's a huge shift in kind of like how the world works, especially with like the advent of social media. And I think that also kind of like shifts everyone's view towards younger people because they're thinking, oh, you're just like on TikTok all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that that definitely does not help when you're trying to start out in the workforce. Yeah. You know, but it's something that honestly I feel like can kind of be beneficial. You know, you start out, and if this might sound bad, but like if the bar is pretty low, like you can kind of be like, oh, I know these things or I can do that. But then again, that gets to the where it's a little bit difficult being a woman, because then you're kind of like trying to go ahead and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you know, either you can get those people that are like, oh, stay in your lane, or you don't know how to do that when like you can and you do, but then now it's like awkward.
Well, it happens a lot being like young too, and like having, you know, I don't know, some sort of like leadership capacity. Like, I mean, I feel like that's always, and I can totally relate, like you talking about like age really plays a role a lot of times. I graduated when I was 20. So whenever I started work, I was 20 years old. And I remember sitting there being like,
that's so young.
I know, I was like a little baby. Young. But I remember just being like just a lot of imposter syndrome being, but like, it's like they hired you for a like, you know, like you didn't just like fall through the cracks and like hopefully make it in. Like you got this role for a reason, but it's really hard to remind yourself of that just in different situations. Like, cause like we talked about earlier, you're always gonna have rooms you're uncomfortable walking into. And sometimes you get put in those where you're like, it's almost like you kind of step outside your body for a second and you're like, you're really young trying to accomplish this thing right now. Like you kind of like it all like kind of sets in and you're like, not only are you young, like you're a young woman trying to accomplish this right now. And it's like, oh crap, like what am I supposed to do? You know?
Imposter syndrome is so real.
Crippling.
And it can be, that's the word that came to mind was crippling.
Yes.
It can be so crippling.
Yes.
And it's so funny because, and I don't know what y'all's experience with it is, like when I bring up my imposter syndrome to my coworkers, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you feel that way? You're like awesome. And I'm like, I'm not awesome, and that's the problem.
Listen to me. Yeah, I'm not awesome, though.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. But you've been doing it all week, but I don't know what I'm doing, you know? Well, like, off of that, like, you know, these challenges are something I feel like many women face. Like, I mean, I don't think we're alone in feeling this way, and I don't think that, you know, we just all so happen to have this unique experience. I think a lot of people experience this and are trying to move through their day-to-day with these feelings. How would you say that, like, community or mentoring or like certain leaders that you have made an impact on you in your roles? Like how has that maybe made the challenges not so crippling or not so harmful to your role?
Mentorship, oh my God, so important. So important. Yeah. And I want to make it clear that like maybe you have like a real formal mentor protege program, but like
we don't.
you don't have to have that. Like you can just have people around you. They can be, you know, vice presidents, program, they can be your peers, but it's just anybody who teaches you anything. It is so freaking important, man, to have that and just to have somebody to learn from, and you don't even always have to learn, but somebody to lean on. Yeah. Somebody to talk to about what you're going through and your experiences, and to ask questions and to just have somebody to go through things with you. But I, like all of any success that I have with my career, I 100% tie to having amazing mentors and people who are willing to go out of their way to teach me, and I continue to do that, and that's something that you should have throughout your whole career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I find myself spiraling in my car a lot less as an adult because I have people to talk to.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a formal mentorship at Intuitive, but it's there's just such a big difference knowing there's at least like one person that believes you're doing a good job and they gave you this task and they're like, okay, goodbye. Like, don't tell me anything about it. Just give it to me when you're done. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It does make the biggest difference. Like whenever you're like, no, I have this person in my corner. Like especially because like there are moments, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's you had a bad day, whether a project went really poorly, it can be really easy to feel like the world's against you, and like just knowing you have it, you know, at least that one person in your corner that you can go talk to about it and try to navigate your way out is so beneficial.
Yeah, having people to also remind you that like you're human.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if you guys watched the Barbie movie. It was fabulous.
Yes, and if you haven't seen it, go and see
watch
it now.
Yeah, this is a promo for the Barbie movie. But there's like such a high expectation for women to be like superheroes, like do all these things and do them right, look great, be a great mom, drive a great car, like do all these things, fix your car, man.
Yeah.
You're a mechanical engineer and a woman. Go fix your car.
Go fix your car.
Yeah, that like you can have a mentor that's like, just go talk to someone about it. That's huge for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been really fortunate to have really, really great leaders and communities as a part of my role who I'll walk in and I can sit there and be very, very, very candid and say, I'm extremely overwhelmed. And if something doesn't get taken off my plate, then none of it's going to be done well. And that alone has, I feel like, fully shaped how I will view the rest of my career. And I think that's another important key part, being young, early career, trying to figure out what we're doing. It's important to have these mentors and these communities as a part of your life that will help you shape your perspective. Because if you are taught now that you're a workhorse and, you know, your worth is tied to your job and that's all you know, you're going to be so burnt out by the end of it and look back and be like, man, what was all that for? And so you need someone who is, you know, whether it's a peer or an older person who can try to give you advice and encouragement in that way.
Yeah, even this right now is like, it's just validating all of my feelings, and it's like a really positive experience for me. Like learning to say, not necessarily no in the workplace, but okay, what are my options? Like you don't have to shut someone down and say, no, I can't do it. But like talk to them about like, okay, if we do this, something's going to suffer. What do we want? You know, it's a team effort. It's a group project, and it's not all on you. Yeah. Having those conversations is essential.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to seek out those mentors.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like for me, I have a people lead that I had to find. And he's fantastic. He's great. And it's really nice to be able to sit down with him. He's outside of my project though, so I don't work with him day to day, and he's not like involved in any of my actual like, you know, task work that I do for the client or anything like that. But just to have him and be able to sit down and be like, hey, this is what's going on. You know, what should I do? Is there someone else that you can, you know, refer me to help me deal with this, has been super beneficial. But I would definitely recommend anyone who doesn't feel like they have one like right next to them, or there's no program or something like that, definitely like take the time to seek out someone that like you genuinely feel comfortable sitting down and talking to.
To your point too about them not being like directly in your like day-to-day work, I feel like that can also be extremely beneficial. Like I would say one of my biggest mentors is nowhere near, like his role is not anywhere near related to what my role is at all. But I really do confide in him and trust his judgment a lot. And that makes a big difference too, because also like then you can go into something and kind of update them on what's doing from your perspective. Like, you know, that they don't have like a judgment on like what your work was that week or anything like that. Like you can just update them on what you wanted to say, or, you know, it just kind of changes the conversation and how that goes, you know?
Yeah, it's more of an informal, like, hey.
Yeah, and they can tell you like what's normal and what's not normal. Like, ooh, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. What are you doing over there?
Yeah, because they're not like in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like on that, I think it is so important to have a community and mentors that are diverse, like in your team, outside of your team, in your company, outside of your company, men and women. And like I've been through experiences recently where I'm so happy that I have a community of women and mentors that are women specifically, because sometimes we do go through unique experiences where it's like, I don't want to call him. Who do I talk to?
Yes.
And so that is like, I think such an important thing, is to have diversity in the people that you confide in and that you keep around you.
Yeah.
You also don't want it to be like an echo chamber.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't want to just talk to the same person and now they're like directing your life. You're like, no, you want to be like, okay, like how should I move forward?
Have some opinions and encouragement and advice in there. Well, I even think like to the community aspect too, like mentorship is, I feel like, is so key, but community is too. Like I even think like Morgan, we would have literally never met had that panel not happened last year. I mean, maybe one day, but because we do work in the same industry. But I feel like it really provides you a lot of opportunities to meet really incredible people who can just honestly be, I don't know, like a soundboard sometimes. Like, I mean, yes, like maybe it's not something that you really need mentorship on, but maybe you just want to talk through a bad day, or maybe you need to vent, or like maybe I know Morgan's working in defense and I need to go talk with her and be like, gosh, can you believe like what's going on? And I just need to go chat about how hard things might be at the moment or things like that. And Women in Tech, I feel like, provides a lot of opportunities for that. Because like we said, it's an extremely diverse group. You have young, old, early career, senior, people who are directly working in tech, to people who are just kind of like on the sidelines supporting, or people who want to get into tech and are in a completely different industry. And I feel like that provides just so many avenues for growth in so many different ways, which I feel like is key for the stage of life that we're all in too. So.
Yeah. You have to be brave to ask for a mentor, to be like, hey, you want to be friends?
Dude, and it can be awkward too.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's like, will you teach me your ways? You don't know me.
I think you're really cool.
Can you tell me how to live my life? Thank you.
Can I talk to you all the time and dump all my problems?
Yeah,
Is that fine?
yeah.
And they email back, who are you?
Yeah. You're like, oh, never mind.
Future best friend.
Oh my gosh.
And also it takes a lot of bravery to like walk into an event and go to like, I don't know, like a social hour or anything where you're like, maybe you're hoping to just learn something. Like, that is so awkward to walk into by yourself. But just remember, everyone in that room has probably experienced the same thing that you're feeling. Maybe not there, maybe not in that community, maybe not in that mentorship. But like, also you got to think like your mentor was probably trying to find a mentor and, in their previous, life. And it's okay to remember that. I mean, even intuitive, we always say like have one, be one. And it's really important for us to not only find a mentor, but once you are kind of like learning, you need to also be mentoring someone, because you now have valuable things and there are new people entering the workplace in whatever regard that they need mentors too. Like, you need to be open to also passing that knowledge down. It doesn't need to stop with you, I guess is what I'm getting at. So
Yeah.
Always remember that, you dealt with those challenges. Don't pretend like,
it's all been so easy.
It was all so easy. I didn't have any problems.
Yes, definitely. Well, off of this, I think we're going to wrap it up. I just am curious, and we actually had this question on our panel, but I was just curious, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who's looking to start their career, tech or not, but maybe we hit on the tech a little bit, but just tech or not, what's a piece of advice you would give?
I would say be weirder.
That is the most Liv piece of advice I've ever heard.
Look, okay, especially in like our industry, everyone is trying so hard to fit into like a professional conservative box and be business Barbie, be that person that everyone hopes that you'll be. And that's good. But the way that we solve difficult problems is like by being silly and having human connection. So I feel like if you come into a space being yourself, and still professional, but being yourself, the worst thing that's going to happen is like maybe one person doesn't like you, but I really do think everyone will accept you for who you are, and like you're going to be better off for it. So just come in strange. Come in strange and confident.
I would honestly kind of go back to what I would tell myself in college, is just like, relax, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, take everything as it comes.
Yeah. Learn things, take notes along the way.
Yeah. And not to steal what you guys said, but to give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
I have a 2-part answer. One for when you're on the job hunt, one for when you've landed the gig.
Okay.
Job
That's
hunt, kind of what I said before talking to my earlier self is like, you don't need to have a big elaborate plan, but specifically just be open-minded and don't limit yourself. Like, don't not interview for a job because you didn't think you'd be working in that industry, or it's not like the big flashy company. Like, you never know what opportunities might present themselves and what they might turn into, whether that's a long career at that company or whether it's skills or a springboard to something else. You just don't know. But then once you've landed that role, ask a million questions. Do not be afraid to harass people, because you won't know what you're doing until you ask. People aren't going to know that you need help or what you want until you articulate it. So just don't be afraid to ask a million questions, and you will be so much better for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, question asking is key. I feel like mine would definitely be, it's okay to outgrow things. I feel like whenever I first stepped into my current role, my role previously, I guess, but with the same company, I wasn't really sure if that's what I wanted to do forever, but I knew that like I could really bring something to the table with that at the moment. And I was confident in that and enjoyed it for while I did it. But whenever it came time to, like, I wanted more, and I knew that that was not going to be my forever thing, I really just went and asked for it and went, and I'm very thankful to have the relationship I do with my supervisor. But I was just very honest about being like, I can't do this forever, and this is not what I want to do, and I'm ready for something bigger and more. And that resulted in a change of role and change of responsibilities, and I have been loving it. And I've realized, like, that elevated me professionally, personally, and also just, like, wanting to come to work even more than I already did. Like, just enjoying the day-to-day more. So, like, it's okay to outgrow things, and just because you accepted a job that said, blank, blank, blank is the job description doesn't mean that's where you're going to be forever. And, like, it's okay to go ask for more and want more than what you were previously accepted to do,
That's such good advice. Yeah. And I feel like that's career development in a nutshell. Like, you're not there to do what you were hired to do your entire life.
No.
Yeah, you're not there to be stagnant. People are dynamic and they change, and change is good.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and it's like that's where, if what you apply to do is where you're going to be forever, then that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole reason is, like, it's supposed to move you forward to the next thing. You're supposed to always be wanting more. Like, I feel like that's kind of the whole point. Wow, this was good. This was a lot. I feel relieved. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling better.
I feel like I just went through a therapy session.
Yeah, for real.
It was.
I do have to make a caveat. When I said harass people nicely. Don't actually harass them.
We are not.
Hey, girl.
Ask people politely.
We are not responsible for any reparations you have at work. Okay.
Spam emails. That's not our fault.
No, but no, seriously, this was great. And if you tuned into Career Panel last year in person, this probably sounds a little bit different, and you're probably hearing our different perspective a year later. I feel like it's kind of been fun. Like, I'm thinking back to last year, and I'm like, I really see, like, all of our growth a little bit. I feel like we all sound a little bit more confident, but maybe that's because there's not other people in the room. Now I'm like, maybe it's because there's people not in chairs.
I feel like I'm more nervous that this is going to be public.
I'm like, oh, it was nice when those people probably weren't paying attention to the chairs. They're like looking out the window. I'm like, oh, they can't even hear me.
No.
Yeah.
I've been secretly drinking tea this whole time, hoping no one hears me.
That's okay. But I do want to say thank you guys for just being here with me, talking through all of this. I feel like these conversations are extremely beneficial to not only us, but everyone who will listen, and hopefully they learn something. So thanks for tuning in to WIT Talk. That's it for this episode of WIT Talk. I hope you enjoyed hearing from these amazing rock star women just as much as I did. We'll see you on the next one, but in the meantime, make sure you're following Women in Tech Huntsville on socials to stay connected.